of the ranchmen like that. Yeah.
I've walked into the ranchmans like that.
I'm a resident from the suburbs of Manyberries, from the area called Comrie. And we used to go to town, which was Manyberries, the big metropolitan area. So it's not mythical at all.
When were you going there?
1932 to 1941.
What was Manyberries like then?
Big and bustling. Trains came in 3 times a week each way. Friday night was a big hoot.
Well, I think we have to assume that it's the truth. There's been many stories told in the Manyberries bar, but I'm sure everything that Ron Wood has talked about in his book is all the truth.
Manyberries is going to never look back. I mean, it'll be the tourist mecca, it'll be the go-to place in Alberta. I especially like Woody's picture there.
I've been to Manyberries many times, and used to go and hang out in the South Ranchmans a little bit, and held a couple of town hall meetings there, and those were salt of the earth people, tremendous people.
And I can certainly say that I've never produced a book that was more fun than this friendly volume that Ron has done, God Created Manyberries. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you truly come to love the characters that he's created. So it is my pleasure to introduce that Ron Wood to you this evening. So Ron.
This is all kind of new to me. I'm, you know, you've got to read something from the book. And I thought that was stupid because if you read something and nobody likes it, they won't buy the book. But I was overruled. So the one I chose, which I think is appropriate in this setting, which is a venerable bookstore. This store, I think, must have been here when I came here in 1964 and went into the press gallery, starting at CKPM Radio over on Wellington and O'Connor on the corner there. It used to be a nunnery. About 1917, it was a nunnery, and then I don't know why they let us in there. This one's called Fanny's Flames of Illiteracy. Man, are they ever upset over in Regina, Purvis said after he settled in his chair and his 2 mugs were on the table. My sister-in-law, Fanny, swears she'll never, ever vote Conservative again. I recall Fanny saying she'd never voted for any party but the New Democrats last time she and Bert were here for a visit, Harry Charles responded. In fact, she told us her father and grandfather had never voted for any party but the CCF, and even after that, when it renamed itself the NDP, and what was good enough for them was good enough for her. Well, strictly speaking, that's true, but she was wavering when they elected Jack Layton as their leader. She hates mustaches, calls them mouse stashes. Well, one person's sense of humor is another person's wince, Harry Charles said. So what set the political pot boiling this time, Purvis? Pearlie asked. The Canadian Wheat Board? Or did someone tell her that free health care might not be sustainable? It's been our observation in Manyberries that over in Saskatchewan, the folks are convinced that somehow taxpayer-funded health care is free and has been ever since Tommy Douglas told them it would be. Neither, Purvis said. This time it's about literacy and federal funding. Seems the new government in Ottawa is cutting funding to groups that are trying to stamp out illiteracy, and Fanny belongs to one of those groups. Man, she burned up the telephone line telling me the country will be going to hell because people won't be able to read the road signs. Well, it seems a shame they're yanking money from people who are out there trying to teach people to read, Pearlie sympathized. Although I can't figure out why the schools didn't teach them when they had them under lock and key. You know, it's just my observation, my opinion. We pay the teachers to teach, and if they did their job there wouldn't be any kids leaving school without knowing how to read. There's not just people who were born here, Pearlie. You've got a lot of immigrants coming in who need help, and if they can't read, they won't be able to operate. Harry Charles had a lot of experience in his working days with immigrants he hired who couldn't read. He once said they were just as smart as whips and could do all the jobs except those that required reading or writing, so they often got stuck at the bottom doing the grunt work. Well, anyway, strictly speaking, Fanny and her group weren't actually teaching people how to read. They called themselves advocates for literacy and were promoting literacy rather than actually teaching it. So the government cut their funding and now they can't hire people to go in there and teach people how to read? No, strictly speaking, they didn't hire teachers. They used the government money to get out and around and tell people how important it is that everybody learns to read. The money from Ottawa was to cover expenses, like for travel, accommodation, when they went out to speak to groups like Rotary or the curling clubs, and for fundraising. Fundraising? If they were getting money from the government, why would they have to raise funds? Well, every year they have a big gala dinner to celebrate literacy, and they use part of the government money to drive around to tell local businesses they should contribute and buy tickets to the dinner. That's pretty expensive, you know, the gasoline, maybe staying in motels if they go out of town, buying lunch for donors and so on. Wait a minute, Harry Charles said. Are you saying they spend the government money raising more money so they can go out and make speeches about how important literacy is, and nobody ever actually sits down and teaches people to read? Well, you know, they have office rent to pay, they have telephone bills, a new computer, they take turns managing the office, and you can't expect them to sit in an office all day as managers without some compensation. Then they pay out of their own pockets for the new dresses they have to buy every year for the big gala dinner. Harry Charles held up his right hand with 4 fingers extended as a signal for a reload of the table. Wonder how many groups there are like that across Canada. Well, Fanny said there are hundreds of them and they're all going to have to shut down. Geez, that'll run into the millions, I bet. Wonder what the government will do with all that money it saves. Fanny says they're talking about using it to hire people to teach people how to read and write. Well, she can't object to that, can she? If more people who can't read are actually taught to read, doesn't that accomplish what she and her group were advocating? She should take a measure of pride in that small victory. Well, she doesn't see it that way, nor does Bert. He says the literacy thing kept her out of the dealership telling his sales guys they should be washing the used cars when they aren't dealing with customers. Geez, I hope she didn't start suing the government for breach of contract, Burley said. Nope, no, they have a new plan. And Fanny says she thinks they can get even more money from Ottawa for an even more important advocacy campaign. She says they're going to change their name to Citizens for a Bilingual Saskatchewan and apply for federal funding to get everybody in the province speaking French. Geez, that'll be a tough sell in Saskatchewan, Harry Charles said, and he was shaking his head in doubt. That's not the point. Saskatchewan doesn't figure into it at all. What counts is how easy it'll be to sell in Ottawa, and Fanny thinks it'll be a cakewalk. And Bert says he's behind her all the way, and even offering to pay her fare to Ottawa so she can make the pitch in person. He says that'll keep her busy if she gets the grant and give him more time to play poker with the sales guys between customers.